Hi, my name is Tom Woods with R2 Sports Technology, and in this video we're going to take a few minutes to look at how you can utilize one of our dashboards to perform a self-scout on your own defensive data. So in this case, taking the perspective of a defensive coordinator or defensive staff, looking at their own defensive data and basically taking a look at how offenses are performing against our defense, looking for our weaknesses and trying to do some self-diagnostics, if you will, to see where we might have holes or where we've been strong from a defensive standpoint. So as we start these things again, keeping in mind when I open one of these dashboards, the first place my brain tends to go is to just get an overall sense of the general story that this dashboard is screaming to me. And again, the dashboards tell a story using size and color. Now, when looking at things from a defensive perspective, you got to set your frame of reference right here a little bit. So color always indicates offensive performance. So if I'm self-scouting my own defense, I would love to see red, because that would mean that the the opposing offenses I've been going against have had very little success against me. So good from a defensive perspective, looking at their own data, red is good, which may seem a little bit counterintuitive, but it just simply means that offenses are struggling against me. Where I see blues and greens and that type of colors, those are telling me places where offenses have had success against me in different places. Now, in this case, the dominant color here, and this is from a high school team actually, where they've got scouting data on pretty much their entire previous season. Now, the dominant color here is obviously this really a kind of an orange color to everything, which is indicative of a dominant defense. This is a very good defense we're looking at here. If we come to the team box where it's all summarized, again, we can see their efficiency rating is 35%, which means that opposing offenses, only 3 to 3.5 of the 3 out of 10 plays basically that are run against this defense are successful plays. This is a dominant, dictating, forceful defense that we're looking at here, and that color supports that across the board. Now, while this defense has been dominant and powerful, there still are certain situations and places where they've had some weaknesses. And we're going to take a second here just to kind of show you a quick example of how you can expose where those are. And even a defense as dominating as this can still learn something about themselves and even hit the practice field and shore up some places where they might have a hole. Keeping in mind, I've said this in each of the videos that we produce, I always want to encourage you guys as coaches that dashboards, again, are not intended to in any way affect the way you approach coaching. Everyone has a different perspective. Everybody tends to look through a different lens and understand their opponents and their own information in a different way. So there's nothing in a dashboard that forces you to think a certain way. However you tend to approach your team and your information and how you tend to scout yourself is supported in a dashboard. So if you're a guy who likes to look at things situationally, a down and distance type of guy, then you can take the perspective of looking through downs and distances here to expose and understand strengths and weaknesses. If you tend to be a personnel guy, and I always want to see how we do against personnel groupings, you can go that route. If you are a formation person and want to see formations that are shown, you can go that route. Any number of places you can go. So I'm going to throw a couple things out there just to kind of hopefully get your mind thinking a little bit and just give you a sense of what you can do with the dashboard and where you can take it. Now, in this case, the defensive coordinator has included a number of good, and we kind of have mentioned this in some other of our videos, but it's important when you look at defensive data to include offensive information as well, because defenses tend to react to what offenses show them. And so understanding what a defense does or doesn't do in a certain situation always has to be put in context of what the offenses showed them. So in this case, this defensive coordinator, he's got a lot of great information in here. So he's captured information about what opposing offenses has showed him. He's got personnel groupings, formations he's seen, backfields, plays that have been run against him. And at the same time, he's included some of his big things he's looking at, fronts, coverages, blitzes, where he's had, what he's shown them, and how successful he's been using those different things. Now, Just to give you a quick idea of how you might approach this, again, most everything you see here is indicative of a very strong defense. But where I see greens or blue boxes, those are cases where offenses have had success against this defense. Let's take a quick example of one of these. Now, not a big situation here for them at all, but if we come and look at this one formation right here, I see a big blue box. Now, this box didn't happen very often against them, but this formation was a double tight end flanker formation. So for whatever reason, as dominant as this defense was, they struggled against offenses that gave them this look. Now, if I want to figure out why or try and understand a little bit more as to what was behind all that, I can simply come and click here on this specific box. And when I do that, everything's going to filter around this spot. So what I'm looking at right now, by clicking on that, here's every play that opposing offenses ran against his defense from this double tight end flanker formation. Now, when I see that, 92% of those, I tend to gravitate over here towards the play type. From that formation, 92% of those plays were running plays. So it was a running formation that hurt him in this case. I can even see from the opponents who he's been playing against, really, there was one team specifically that took advantage of him. This Helix team was the one who had tremendous success against him from that formation. Now, I can look and understand a little bit more about what happened and where I might have been successful and where I might not have as a defensive coordinator. Looking at this now, when I've seen this formation, let's look specifically at this one opponent, at what Helix did to us in this case. So when they ran this play, they were running from a 22 personnel package. Where I did have success, so I got, as a defensive coordinator, I basically got abused by this team when they gave me that look. Pretty much everything they did was successful. They ran the ball 10 times. They were 80% efficient when they did. I can see that down here in my play type. Now, the one thing that does stand out when I look at this is there was one front that when I employed that front, I was successful against this formation. And that's this 52 slant strong front shows up here. I can tell by the color that they did not have success when I gave them that look. So when I saw that formation, as a defensive coordinator, if I had to play Helix again, if I see them in the playoffs or at some point later in the future, I can know when they give me that look, the thing I need to respond with is this 52 slant strong front, because that's where I did have success. When I ran these other combinations of fronts and stunt combinations, they owned me. So I can quickly get that kind of information that says, okay, what I need to be doing here is showing them this front in response to that formation. So this is a quick example of finding, in the middle of a very, very dominant defense, finding a small weakness, a small chink in their armor, and very quickly being able to come up with something to diagnose a problem and say, okay, I'm not going to let that be a chink in my armor next time I see them. I'm going to respond with this. We see that formation, we run from this front, and we can respond accordingly. So this is a quick example of how a defensive coordinator can look at his own data and begin to very quickly identify a weakness and even identify a potential solution to close that hole. Now, I'm going to set this back here just a little bit, just give you another quick example of how you might approach this. Again, here we are, very dominant defense. We might look at a certain part of the field and how we perform. Do we have any, is there a part of the field where we have a weakness or a potential struggle? Let's just start, let's go and look at how we performed in the red zone, let's say. So to do that, we can take this field position slider. I'm going to slide it over here to the 80-yard line, which would mean the 20-yard line coming in. So by doing that, I instantly get an update. Okay, so now I'm looking at all the plays I had, all the plays that offenses ran against me in the red zone for all these games that I'm looking at here. Again, in total, I'm very dominant. 30% efficiency, still a very dominant defense, lots of reds. But I can see some unique things about the red zone specifically that could be concerning for me. Again, there are certain types of plays here. If I had to come and look at my play type over here, very successful. They struggled to pass against me. In many ways they struggled. But there's two types of plays right here that did give me trouble in the red zone. Lead trap and trap read plays. There were 8 plays that were run. They were successful when they ran those 2 plays against me. Again, while I'm dominant, I can come and quickly diagnose and understand what to expect and where I might struggle when I see those. I could filter on these, and you can select multiple things here. If I just drag a little box and select both these 2 types of plays, here are those plays where I struggled defensively. And it's kind of interesting. Again, it was Helix. Helix was a struggle for us in these cases, where I can again see situations where they ran those plays, where I struggled, where I had success, where I didn't, and come up with a solution, a way to address this in the future, or to fill in a hole where I see one. Now, again, just a quick example here of how you can take your own defensive data and begin to identify where you have holes and weaknesses, and look for potential solutions to fill those in, so you can shore up your weaknesses as you go forward. The thing I encourage, again, when we look at defensive data and dashboards, do your best to include pieces of information that set the right context of what an offense is doing to you. So while you obviously want to see things about your fronts and blitzes and coverages and that kind of information, you also want to include those offensive elements that can help you best understand exactly what an offense was doing when you did have a struggle or have a success. So hopefully this gives you just gets your mind thinking a little bit about ways that you can utilize your dashboard from a defensive perspective to better understand what you're good at, bad at, where you've struggled, where you've had weaknesses. If you have questions or would like more information on how these work, by all means contact us directly with the information that follows this video, and we look forward to a chance to speak with you more. Thank you for taking a few minutes.